Welcome to Films Apart, the podcast where we poke fun at buried flops, unearth hidden gems, and explore timeless classics.
So grab yourself some popcorn, sit back, and let's break these films apart.
Welcome to today's episode of Films Apart. Today we're looking at something a bit different than usual.
Yeah, we're looking at a person.
Yeah, a person's work through the lens of a documentary.
Yeah.
So it's our first documentary for the podcast.
And that person is Val Kilmer, who sadly passed away.
Yeah, 65 years old.
65 years old, yeah. It's a legend.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like even though I haven't seen many of his films, his name echoes throughout films of the sort of mid to late 80s for me. And further as well. But I feel like he's given a lot of memorable performances of very interesting characters.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of what he is, isn't it? It is about characters. It is about wanting to do good performances. He comes from a background of training, and he wanted to create art, which is what was explored in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
So the documentary is called Val, and it is available on Sky.
Yes, it is. It was only available for not free, but for a subscription on Now TV.
And the basis of it is that over the course of his life, Val Kilmer had recorded much of his own life, really. His own life in the arts, with the theatre, with film, of his personal life as well. And he had boxes of these cassettes. And when he was ill with throat cancer a few years ago, he dug those up and created this documentary. And
it's really nice. It's sort of obviously home video. Shows him from growing up as a child, making films with his brothers, all the way up to on sets where he carried on sort of videoing himself and his co-stars. And it's quite an interesting behind the scenes look at a lot of them big blockbuster movies that he was in.
Yeah. I think the stuff that stuck with me the most from it was probably the family stuff.
Yeah, I think that was the most interesting part for me.
That and his beginning as an actor, but early on in his life, his brother died, drowned in a pool after having an epileptic fit, and it seems like that he carried that with him for the rest of his life. I thought it was quite heartbreaking that his brother died when he was 15. It was his younger brother, I think, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
His brother died when he was 15, and then maybe the year after or something, he went to the Juilliard School to study acting, and he took all these pictures that his brother created and put them up on the wall in his digs. That's quite an emotional thing to do. Seeing all those kids' pictures on the wall that his brother had made, it seemed maybe slightly brave as well to me.
Yeah, I feel like normally when people are grieving, you assume that they sort of get rid of the things because it's too painful to see or put them to the side, but he embraced it, didn't he, and had his memory of his brother there. Or
in typical, I suppose, British fashion, is just kind of get on with it and pretend that it hadn't happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember when I was it reminded me of a personal experience that when my nan died, I was at college at the time. And it was the first person in my life that had died that I was really close to. I lived with her at the time. And I went into college the next day after it had happened with her, carrying her shawl with me because it smelt like her. And I look back on it, I think I must have looked a bit weird at the time. But I was so broken. I was in and out of lectures. I just couldn't. I had to go home in the end. I was just absolutely gutted. But then, I guess there's a little bit of me that in hindsight felt a bit embarrassed about that. Maybe because I'm British. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's because it is vulnerability, isn't it, really?
It's vulnerability.
It is one of them things that it does help you remember them and make you feel close to them when they're not there anymore.
But how important is that vulnerability to us as writers and to Val Kilmer as an actor? Because that's the other thing that stood out is when he was in one acting class and he was doing a monologue from Hamlet, that this too solid flesh should melt thaw and resolve itself into a dew, and teacher was saying, "Why are you doing it like that?" And he was going,
Yeah.
"Well, I've never had this experience.
He
I've
was
never
sort of
felt like I
straining his
wanna-"
face, squeezing his
Yeah.
fists,
If
really overdoing it, wasn't he?
overdoing it, which is something that Val Kilmer has done.
Yeah.
But overdoing it, and he sort of defended himself against the teacher. I thought it was brave to show that video, actually. But
Yeah.
he defended himself against the teacher, saying, "Well, I've never had this experience in my life." And the teacher was like, "You have had
Yeah.
this experience. You've all had this experience." And he was like, "Well, no, I've never wanted to kill myself, essentially,"
Yeah.
which is what that monologue's sort of saying. It made me think a lot about the things that we experience and the things that we have happen in our lives and how that can play into what we create.
I think it was interesting that throughout the rest of the documentary, he spoke about how he used his pain and grief from his brother and his parents' divorce, and then later on, not so much because he didn't really do much after he did, but after his mother died as well, which was later in his life, he took that into the characters that he found. So one character that he played, he said that it was he took a show to stage, didn't he, of his sort of passion project.
Oh, the Mark Twain.
Yeah. He said Mark Twain had lost his daughter, hadn't he? And
Yeah.
he carried the pain that losing his brother had for him and sort of brought that to the character.
So maybe he took that from the Juilliard, but it
Yeah.
seems to me that he had that sensitivity in him already,
Yeah.
which was displayed with the pictures of his
Mhm.
brother. But going back to that, I mean, you're probably closer. Well, you're definitely closer to the age that he was in that clip in the Juilliard.
Mm.
The teacher said that everybody there has experienced this. Everybody there has felt this, and he just said, "I don't believe you. I do not believe you. You have felt this."
Yeah.
Well, have you?
Jesus.
I know it's a big, hard question, and I mean, you don't. Sorry if that feels
no,
too
no,
much
no, no,
to put on you, but it isn't necessarily. It doesn't.
No, I think that was actually a moment that stuck with me in the film, because it did make me really think, as someone who wants to be a filmmaker and wants to direct actors. It really put it into perspective of how you can get a performance out of an actor. They don't have to have had that exact experience, but everyone has had an experience that it in some way can be linked, or you can empathize with wanting to kill yourself or being at this point because of any emotion you've had in small doses. I think, like he says, everyone's had moments where they've been like, it'd just be easier to die, but it's not to the point where you would act on it. So I have in my life thought like, oh, what's the fucking point? But then it's like instantly you'll snap out of it and just be like, no, don't be stupid, you'll get by, this will be fine, you move on.
But is that what's in that? I mean, let's not delve too deep into like Hamlet's Shakespeare's intentions in Hamlet with that monologue, but like what was interesting about the teacher was that when he said, well, he basically said what you've just said, that well, I've experienced it, but I've not experienced it in this framework. And the teacher again said, you have experienced it in this framework, which is a bizarre framework. I mean, Hamlet is like his father's died and he's been betrayed by his uncle and all of this stuff, and so they're very specific things that a lot of people have not experienced. So what was he getting at? What's he getting at? There's some fundamental truth in the pain, I guess, of Hamlet that you will have experienced, is what he's saying. I guess he's saying that level of frustration is something that...
it's not that...
food for thought, really.
I think it's very much like the circumstance of a character doesn't matter. It's the raw emotion that an actor needs to tune into, and however they can do that, whether it be through grief of your younger brother dying at a young age or the divorce of parents, like you can bring something to this character. Yeah.
It made me think about, I'm doing a play tomorrow. I would advertise it here, but this podcast will come out after. I'm doing a play tomorrow, and it made me think about what is it in this character that I can access. It's a bit late in the process, I guess. But what is it in this character that I can access in myself? And this is a guy whose father has been wrongfully arrested and accused of killing soldiers, and he finds out that that's true, that it's wrongfully arrested, and he comes to confront the family who put him there. I don't know.
Any of that ever happened to you?
But it hasn't happened to me. But I guess it made me think: has my process been off with this particular performance? I haven't acted in things for a while, and I certainly haven't acted in something in this capacity in a while. And so watching this documentary was really interesting from an acting point of view. It really made me reflect on my own experiences. Anyway, that's gone off. We've gone off track here, haven't we?
That's all right.
So Val Kilmer. So he went to Juilliard, came out of Juilliard, and was on the stage to begin with.
Yes.
He spoke about an experience he had in a play with Sean Penn and who was the other actor? Somebody very well known. Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon. Yeah. So he was like, I was playing the lead in this play, and then Kevin Bacon said that he could do it, and so they said, well, you're now going to play second lead, and then Sean Penn said he could do it, and he was like, okay, well, you're now going to play third lead. Yeah. And the character he played in it was somebody that was having the piss taken out of him the whole time. I thought it was interesting that bothered him, really. I can understand there being dropped down from the lead, but the fact that the character was being like offended was like offending him as well. Yeah. But an interesting insight into him. So what films stick out for you then, of the ones you have seen?
So of his that I have seen, I've seen the Top Gun movies. Obviously the second one is just a sort of brief cameo that he's in, because that was after he had been diagnosed with his throat cancer.
And he looked very ill.
Yeah. Willow, Heat.
So what's your memory of Heat?
Yeah. Heat I've seen recently.
Oh, okay, cool. So
it's great. Really good. I had a mate that used to go on about it all the time at uni. I sort of got bullied into watching it. I was like, oh, right. Because I love Baby Driver. I watched it and it's really fucking good. It's a great film. And then Willow, just a bit silly fun, really, isn't it? Like Warwick Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a classic of the 80s. Yeah.
And then Top Gun, obviously, brilliant film. Love that film.
Yeah, I thought about you and Top Gun actually when I was watching it, and I wondered what film you would associate more with him, and I wondered if it was that.
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely The Doors.
Yeah, I've not seen that one.
And that was something that I watched when I was in my teens for the first time. It's one of those films that I've watched lots and lots of times. Like I've probably watched it 20 times or something. It was a film a go-to film. It got me into The Doors. It's such a good performance. I think it's like massively critically heralded, but personally I think it's a very good film. I think it's very atmospheric, and it plays on the myth of Jim Morrison. And obviously he showed a little bit of his process in the documentary of that film, didn't he? He's sort of, I think his marriage began to fall apart because of it, because he spent a year
just over and over watching the videos of them at
and
concerts,
just playing music over and over again of the same stuff, and how he was driving him mad.
One thing that was interesting, I wish it was touched on a bit more, but there was a bit where it was people said it's notoriously difficult to work with on sets, and there's quite a few news reports about him apparently being like hard to work with and a bit of a diva. And then there was an interview with him with someone where they were like, "You're not that though, are you? You just care." And it was about him having this perfectionism with his work, and I thought that was really interesting. I wish they delved into that more, because that's something I struggle with as a creative, just that perfectionism and not knowing when to take a step back, because he got quite obsessed with his work, especially with The Doors. That was a big deal for him.
And of the films I've watched of his, but it's by far the best performance. It's the most committed performance, and so there's something to be said about the amount of work he put into it. And I'm not saying he didn't necessarily put that much work into other things. I don't know, but that was the one that he showed. I thought it was interesting, the Island of Dr. Moreau one, which was a disaster, because because of the Brando stuff, really. You know, he was like, Brando started to try and put his ideas across. The director didn't listen to them, and so he just gave up. Yeah. And then Brando just went through the motions. Yeah. And so I guess that might be what you're talking about with the perfectionism. Like, that's Brando going, I just haven't got the energy for this anymore. Yeah. I'm going to let go.
I think...
And he was old.
That's something that I struggle... Like, with me, I will either give 100% of my efforts, go the extra mile, but the moment I lose faith, you're not getting anything out of me. I'm not putting any effort in. I'll do the bare minimum, which has been a problem with a lot of jobs. But
yeah, I don't think that is necessarily something that will stay the same for the rest of your life. I think that we do change. I can relate to that. You know, like I always felt like when I was acting and I was doing performances and stuff, and when I did stuff like Amdram stuff years and years ago, if I was really into the character, I'd be there all the time. I'd be overdoing it. I'd be obsessed with it, and I'd be doing all these rehearsals. I'd be wanting to do rehearsals out of time. It's all I cared about. But then I got cast. I can remember being cast in this character. I'd auditioned for this character that I really wanted, and I didn't get it. It was given to somebody with much more experience. Although they said that they really, they were laughing in the audition, and they said, it was in a good way.
Yeah.
And they were and they were saying, we really wanted to give it to you.
Yeah.
But this guy's been around he's like 20, 30 years older than me or something at the time he was. And he's been around for a while, so we're going to give it to him. And they gave me this other part, which was a big-ish part.
Yeah.
But it was just not suited to me.
No.
And so I just couldn't get into it. So I'd just turn up, and I just couldn't draw on anything in that. And I didn't. And in the end, I dropped out of it because I just couldn't. That thing really, whereas now I think I have since done performances where I've just not felt into it, and I've just forced myself to kind of get through it, because you just go, it's just going to be a period in your life. You will get some learning out of it one way or another, and it's stressful and you hate it, and every day before the rehearsal you're like, I've got to go to this in rehearsal now. But you're never always going to get like the perfect situation.
No. I feel like I do it a lot with jobs where it's like, I'll come into it high energy, put as much effort as I can into it, and then you start feeling like people might be taking the piss now and sort of taking advantage of it, and no one else seems to be putting in the effort, and they're not being moaned at for it, so you stop, and then it becomes a problem because you've set a too high standard for yourself.
I would say that with work, like menial jobs and things like that, that is just life.
Yeah.
That is what it's like. That is my experience. Totally. I go there, I try to do my best in that job, and I watch other people not doing their best in that job, and they're not getting into trouble for it. And you just think, what's the point?
Yeah.
And you're getting it in the neck a little bit sometimes, even though you're putting in way much effort more than anyone else, because I don't know if I want to say this really, but I went into work the other day and I was like, like a couple of people had gone and said, Lewis is just not himself. He's not being himself. And the only reason they're saying that I'm not being myself, I think, I might be wrong in case they're listening, but is because I was just being very honest with them. I was just saying how I felt. And that was, that I was not happy with something that was thrust upon me. That when I've got so many other responsibilities, whereas normally I just
like,
sort of get quietly go along with it, and so to them that's like, oh God, no, he's not being Lewis. He's not. He's. I've just been.
It's not just saying yes.
I will do my best. I work with people with autism. I will do my best to support those people. Politics and all the other stuff around it. No, I can't be arsed anymore.
I get that. I think work politics is just.
And so we're talking about Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer has recently died.
I think a big takeaway from the documentary was don't live with regrets, because he spent his whole last years of his life only being able to look back because of his loss of his voice,
but he didn't seem
remorseful.
No, he didn't seem overly unhappy. I'm sure. I mean, he said he felt up and down with it, as you're gonna feel. And there was that moment. I felt it was really sad, that Comic-Con moment. And he was at Comic-Con, and he was just they just asking him over and over again, can you sign this? Can you write this? Can you write, you're my wingman? Everybody just asking the same questions over and over again. It felt like, oh God, man. And then he was like, listen, I just need to have a moment. I need to go and lie down. And this is a man with cancer.
Yeah.
And I felt really sad for him then when I saw that. But then when he came back out, he was really jolly and he was really happy again. And I just thought he just seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
The other film that really stands out for me is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I think I've probably only watched it. I might have only watched it once, maybe once or twice, but it's stayed in my head. It's one he did with Robert Downey Jr.
I've not seen that one, but I've been told it's brilliant, and I need to watch it.
Well, I mean, that's another one that I saw at the cinema, and it's like 20 years old or something, like a kind of detective-y sort of crime novel with a slight twist to it. Anyway, I can't fully remember it. All I remember is it stuck with me, and I've got images of it in my head. So I want to go back to that. We were talking after watching the documentary, we want to go and watch some of those films that we haven't seen, don't we?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go check out Tombstone. Also, I've never seen True Romance somehow.
Okay, yeah. Do you know what? When I thought about doing this podcast on this documentary, I was initially going to say, do you want to watch True Romance?
Okay. No, I think he's got a really interesting filmography, and all of his films just look, for like someone who takes himself as such a serious actor, his dream role when he was younger was to be in Hamlet. That was his dream play to be in when he was a theatre actor. He's been in a lot of just big, like, Hollywood movies, which is normally the type of stuff that an actor might turn their nose up at. Like, and it was interesting actually hearing him talk about Top Gun and how he didn't like it at all at first, because it just felt like it was just...
And then he got seduced
action
by
for
it.
action, yeah.
He said it was easy to be seduced by it. He said that Tony Scott, the director, Ridley Scott's brother, isn't it? He was really good to work with, and that he got seduced by that blockbuster, I guess.
Yeah.
And presumably by the popularity of it. It was his third film.
That Top Secret looked fun.
I've heard people say that that's a bit of like a classic that's passed many people by. I don't know. What it made me think was, because we were doing it on Val Kilmer, it made me think, like, what do actors mean to you?
This is a weird question. I feel like hearing Val Kilmer died was a bit of a shock, because he's such a massive name. Even though I've not seen many of his films, it was quite gutting. But those actors that you are really passionate about, I think they mean a lot. Because a lot of them I sort of are the reason I got into film, like Harrison Ford. I still am obsessed with him now. Like, as a kid, I wanted to be
him,
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to be Harrison Ford. And then I was like, oh, actually, I want to make films and write films. But Indiana Jones is what got me into movie making, into the love for film. And at first, thinking I wanted to be an archaeologist so I could kill Nazis and steal treasure. But archaeology was a bit more boring than that, apparently.
I mean, I wanted to be an actor, I was an actor, but, I wanted to be, I wanted that to be my life, really.
Yeah.
And so they've always meant loads to me. Like, people like Marlon Brando were like, and Robert, De Niro and stuff, the classics that you think of, mostly of American film, but then also people like Alec Guinness and stuff. Have always just meant loads to me. They've been like my sort of heroes.
Yeah.
And they're weirdos.
Yeah, that's what I loved that about this documentary.
Yeah,
he's just
an eccentric.
He's so weird. He'll pull faces at the camera and just have these moments of like just letting out energy of just being stupid. And it's like, I do shit like that all the time. This is great to see that. Maybe I'm not completely mental, or if I am, you can get famous being mental. So maybe we'll have success.
Yeah. And at the beginning, he had. He was putting all these bracelets on, and I thought maybe they were, because he's a Christian Scientist. So at the beginning, I thought maybe they were like, he thought they were natural healing things, like you can put like copper things on your wrists and stuff. And then towards the end of the film, you see that it's like his mother's jewelry, this kind of, and he was very much a lovey. Had that, with his scarf on and everything. I know he's kind of covering something up with that, but he had that look about him. And when you see Brando in the film, and you're just like, he's lying on this, what's it called? Hammock, yeah. And he goes, push me. He's fucking done. Push me. He says to Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer gives him a push, a big push. Yeah, that's it. And then he's just swinging on this hammock, and you're like, this guy is
so weird.
Yeah. I totally relate to that, like sort of nuttiness. And now we're writers, I guess. So those are the people that will speak our words, that will tell our stories.
Yeah. I love as well another thing about the documentary. So much of it is found footage of him as a child, him making films and remaking his and his brother's favourite films on film. And then later, video. They said he always had a video camera on him, didn't he? Some of his friends. It sort of makes me wish that I had a camera when I was a kid with my brother just doing stupid shit in the garden. Me trying to direct him so that we can do an pretend Indiana Jones, and him saying, no, I want to be Doctor Who. So then me having to figure out, how can Doctor Who be in this Indiana Jones story? Then shit like that. It's like, I wish I just had a camera on.
For stuff like that,
it'd be great to look back on.
It'd be really good, but there was a friend of mine who just used to, he carried a camera with him everywhere he went, and he'd film us wherever we go, and he'd drive us mad. We'd just be like, you'd turn around and there'd be a camera in your face, and you'd be like, just off, just piss off, It just like, it's all right for a bit, but then after a while you're like, you just don't feel like, you feel ill at ease the whole time.
You gotta be performing.
But then we've also got lots of footage of things, some of which I didn't wish we didn't have footage of, but I'm sure in the future I'll look back on it and I'll go, okay, that's it's good to look back on. But then there's been lots of other parts of my life where there's hardly any photos and there's hardly any film, and I wish that there was, like college and stuff. I just not
Mhm.
got a lot of that stuff. So yeah, there is something to be said about it. But I would imagine that he irritated people.
Yeah.
I got that
Well, I
feeling.
think he was irritating Brando,
Yeah.
wasn't he? Because
Yeah.
he was filming him, and he was trying to pretend that he was like Freud or someone, going like, "So what's your earliest memory?"
Oh, that was it.
And
Do you remember? Do you have memories before you could
you could
talk?
talk, yeah. And he doesn't get a reply.
Yeah.
He's just like, "Push me."
But I think he was, yeah, as in on the hammock, not
Yeah.
not like just fucking push me.
Knock me over.
But then Brando was. I think that was probably a serious question because I mean he viewed Brando as a genius. He could speak 6 languages, you know, Brando.
Really?
It's mad to think that he played drums and musical instruments, and he's just a very, very talented human being.
Mm.
You know, with a political conscience, but also very, very eccentric and very weird, and got a bad name by some of the press, whilst you know those in the arts kind of revere him, or many do.
I don't know an awful lot about Brando because I feel like he's one of the actors that I suppose was the actors that I grew up loving's hero.
The films that I really like of his, he was making in the 50s, really.
Yeah.
And Godfather, obviously.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, the way you talk about Harrison Ford and him being a man crush, in a way that would be my equivalent. Like, you know, I look back
He's
at
your man crush.
like On the Waterfront, his performance in On the Waterfront and his performance in Streetcar Named Desire, especially. Those performances are just like incredible.
Just too sexy for you to watch.
Too they are. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
you want to be him.
You want to be them. Yeah. There's that saying, isn't there? You either want to be them or you want to fuck them.
Yeah.
You want to fuck them or want to be them or something. Both.
Are we gonna have this jar, by the way? Were we gonna have like a swear jar, weren't we? I think.
Oh yeah, someone said that, but no.
No.
I'm already in debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel, for me, like, I think just celebrities, like, what's the meaning of a celebrity to you? Like, so many of them, like Edgar Wright and these people that you can just watch a clip of them talking about their craft and you're just instantly inspired. I feel like that's so powerful.
Yeah.
To have when you're like, as a creative in a slump, feeling like, what's the point? You can just watch an interview with one of these people and it's like...
And whether you're a creative or not, what they bring to the world, those stories that we have that are like such a big part of our lives, they're a massive part of our lives, aren't they? Everybody's life. Everybody watches films. Everybody watches TV. You know, it's a huge part of our existence. When I ask what do actors mean to you, I think that actors, writers, you know, they mean everything, really. I mean, it's a sad world without it. I mean, it almost leads you onto that question about AI, doesn't it? But I'm so sick of talking about AI. Yeah.
It's all that ever comes up with these conversations.
Every seminar, it seems to come up, doesn't it?
Just AI. Oh yeah, and they go, oh yeah, that's an interesting one. It's not. We've heard it a million times. It's all anyone's on about.
I tell you what, it did make me think though. It made me think that I did hear. Sorry to go on about it, but I did hear Bill Gates has said he reckons there's only going to be 3 jobs that will be safe from AI. One of them was a biologist because he thinks that the creativity needed for discovery is not going to be in AI. The other one was like be a coder.
Yeah.
Even though AI can code, and the other one was. I can't remember. It was an energy expert. It was like 3 random like jobs, really. It didn't know nothing
about
the
ice cream man.
What
about ice cream man?
Well, you know, AI could do that. You know, it can 3D print food. But like, it made me think about what we do, and it made me realise the importance of theatre actually. And I thought, I wonder if there's going to be a renaissance in the theatre because. You can't AI that. Okay, you can write an AI play.
Yeah.
But you can't AI a stage performance. You need people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put a film on, but for stage acting, you need people.
Point. Yeah.
So it's gave me a bit of renewed vigour for the stage. Renewed and vigour always go together, don't they?
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, should we popcorn score him?
Popcorn score on Val Kilmer's life.
Let's not do that. I think that we could popcorn score the documentary, but let's not even do that.
No, I don't think so. It's a good documentary. Check it out. I think it's a really nice.
It's about life. It's about art. It's about a person that we all know in whatever capacity, and it's well worth a watch. So I don't think there's much else to say other than rest in peace, Val Kilmer.
Yeah, rest in peace, Val.
Yeah. So next time we'll be back to our normal business of destroying films. Yeah.
Yeah, we destroyed a man's life. Let's go back to destroying films.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.